quit, and that'll be it. Just then the stripper stopped in a coughing fit. She said, sorry, I can't go on with this. Yeah, that's awful close, but that's not why. It's so hard to find.
I remember the first time I ever thought about fighting. The first time I thought about fighting was in Morgan's cigar store in the Junction on Dundas, right by Indian Road Crescent. And I was 7 years old. I walked into the store and I saw a magazine called The Ring. The little line underneath said, The Bible of Boxing. And I opened up this boxing Bible. And I looked, oh, man, I fell in love. I was in the top 10 at the age of 20, you know what I mean? That's young, and I made my move early, and I had potential, and I think it was there, it was plain as day for everyone to see. I knew what I wanted to be, heavyweight champion of the world. Simple, my life was simple. I want to be heavyweight champion of the world. I want to make some money, you know?
It's a long, tough journey from the neighborhoods of Toronto to Madison Square Garden. From anywhere in Canada to a shot at the heavyweight championship of the world. In the ring, every fight has particular meaning. And every fight is the intersection of two different stories. That Canadians know George Chuvalo at all is only partly due to his getting the fight he had dreamed about for years. Mostly, it is because of who the fight was against, where it took place, and the extraordinary story of how it happened at all.
They say this is the ring where I fought Muhammad Ali the first time. This is the same ring that they had in the gardens. I don't know, it looks big enough. It looks big enough.
Such is the present lowly and chaotic state of professional boxing that this match, Maple Leaf Gardens tonight, wandered all over North America before it found a home. New York turned it down because of Ernie Terrell's friends. Cassius Clay said that he didn't want to fight in Vietnam, so Chicago turned it down. Montreal declined with thanks. Toronto was the last big port in a storm, and by the time the fight got here, Terrell was out and George Chuvalo was in. George Chuvalo, the Canadian champion, seems to be the one man who has clearly benefited from all the confusion. When big-time boxing came to Canada, Chuvalo got the match he'd been waiting for years.
It seemed unlikely that they'd ever come together, the ordinary local hero and the fighter who would be called the greatest. But in truth, Muhammad Ali and George Chuvalo were anything but strangers. And this fight marked a turning point in both of their lives. It helps rescue Muhammad Ali's career, and it makes George Chuvalo a Canadian legend. And yet, the night for which he'll always be remembered is also a night George Chuvalo sometimes laments. Because it's overshadowed the 10 difficult years it took to get there and has left him a reputation he doesn't want.
In the trials and tribulations of a career that, had its high points and low points, they kind of write you off, that they call you a punching bag. I got shock absorber, take all kinds of shots. And basically, they didn't talk about me that way much until the Ali fight. You're stuck with an image, and that's it. It's like, that's it for you forever, And I'm not like that. I wasn't like that, and I know I wasn't. And the fighters I fought know I wasn't like that.
Long before the world had even heard of Muhammad Ali, George Chuvalo was being billed as the new Rocky Marciano, a heavyweight champion in waiting.
Chuvalo's a terrier again.
He never takes a backward step, has never been off his feet. Raw and relentless, he's the very embodiment of his tough, working-class background.
His father worked at Canada Packers on the killing floor, which has got to be just about, in my terms anyway, the lousiest job you can have in the world. You're just killing animals all day long. It's a wonder you don't end up, lunatic. The father was forced by Canada Packers to take 2 weeks holidays. So, as far as George knew, he had 2 weeks holidays. And his father would disappear every morning of this 2 weeks holidays. And then George found out that the father was going to Canada Packers every day. And he was sitting there on the killing floor watching the guy who was working in his place to make sure that he didn't lose his job. And I don't see how you can come away from that shock of recognition without that having an effect on how you behave yourself.
My father was a disciplinarian in the strictest sense of the word. My mother was complete opposite. She was soft as candy, soft as butter. She used to pluck chickens. Started off with half a penny a bird, then I went up to a penny a bird. I used to penny half, and I'm talking about late 30s and 40s and that. Anyway, I used to walk to school, and my mother would be there every recess, it seemed like. The old country East European kind of kerchief, and she'd had a black apron, all the chicken guts and feathers and blood all over it, and rubber boots. I always remember my mother's hands. She had big hands, and in between their fingers were like cracks. It looked like athlete's foot on the fingers, all raw, open, raw, and red. And she used to always throw either a bag of chips, potato chips, or a pomegranate over the fence. Give me a kiss through the wire link fence, boom, and go back to work. I remember asking my mother, "Mom, please buy me a set of boxing gloves. I want to be a fighter." And I guess she thought I was a little wacko, but she finally got them for me. I don't remember if it was my birthday or for Christmas one year. A couple of years later, I was about 9 years old. I remember the smell of Vaseline, the smell of cocoa butter. I remember the smell of cigars. All these new things, all these new experiences. It was quite something. Yeah, it's quite something. At 10, I was 85 pounds. 12, I was 112. 13, I was 135 pounds. 14, 172. But I think it was really when I was a heavyweight at the age of 15 that people started to notice me. I mean, it's like, holy mackerel. In those days, you didn't see too many 15-year-olds weighing 198 pounds. You do today.
Over the next 3 years, Chuvalo gains a reputation for his obsessive workouts and willingness to spar with all comers, including professionals many years his senior. At only 18, he's clearly the best amateur heavyweight in all of Canada.
I was fighting amateur, but I didn't have a job at the time, and the government wouldn't give you 5 cents in those days to train. I was going to stay alive, so I turned pro early. I turned pro on St. George's Day, April 23rd, 56. That was the Jack Dempsey tournament. Knocked out 4 guys one night, a total of 12 minutes and 36 seconds. So that was kind of the big splash, kind of like the grand opening,
Jack Dempsey saw the man fight, said he saw him fight 2 or 3 fights in one day or something to that effect. And it was with utmost certainty that he said he'd be the next heavyweight champion of the world.
That kind of wild optimism nearly ruined Chuvalo's career, even before it begins. Everything is happening too fast.
My manager at the time was Jack Deacon Allen, an old-time fight guy, an old guy, well into his 70s, and he was in a hurry. I started fighting 8 rounders right away after the Dempsey tournament. I was fighting main events right away. I was fighting guys when I was 19 that Rocky Marciano would fight. I remember fighting a guy who fought a draw with Archie Moore. Just after a few fights, I fought a guy called Howard Kane. And that was my first 10-rounder. And I went for broke out. And that's what must have been about a couple dozen punches. And he would ride them so perfectly.
George just couldn't handle them at all. That should have been the warning signal to Deacon Allen and to Tunney that they had to give this guy a chance to develop. But they wanted a house fighter from Maple Leaf Gardens.
Close to 10,000 fans turn up at Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens for the heavyweight fight between George Chuvalo and Alex Medel.
Any concerns about Chuvalo's development are being eclipsed by his growing popularity and timely ring victories.
I actually knocked out Medel in the 10th round. He was out of the ring for about 14 or 15 seconds. I should have had a knockout. They called it a draw, and that fight anyway put me in the top 10. I was number 8 in the world after that, so I was kind of like, my mind, no matter, even though I just got a draw out of it, even though I really knocked him out, I was in the big time, so I felt pretty cool about that.
Put on your fine dress, baby.
The kid from Louisville, Cassius Clay, in 1958, is only 4 years younger than George Chuvalo. But in boxing terms, they're worlds apart. Clay hasn't even grown into a heavyweight yet. He's just another amateur trying to make a name for himself, but smart enough to ask all the right questions.
Muhammad knew me before I knew Muhammad. He used to watch me on TV with all my fighters. And the first time I ever met him was in Louisville, Kentucky. He came to see me. He said, my name is Cassius Clay. I'm the Golden Glove champion in Louisville. I won the Golden Gloves in Chicago. I won the Golden Glove in Seattle. I want to talk to you. 3.5 hours, 4 hours later, we were talking. Asked me every kind of a question. How the fighters train, how long they run, how long do you abstain from having sex before a fight, stuff like that. But it was pertinent stuff for him. And that was 2 years before the Olympics. He told me then he was going to win the Olympics. That was 1958. So that's the kind of kid Muhammad Ali was. Special.
Well, as I understand, I'm Cassius Marcellus Clay VI, and my great-great-grandfather was a Kentucky slave, and he was named after some great Kentuckian. Well, Cassius Marcellus Clay is a great name in Kentucky. And really, where he was from or where it was all originated, I couldn't tell you. But since I've reached a little fame in boxing, most people want to know where am I from and where did I get that name. But really, I haven't really checked on it. So I see that I'm going to have to go look into it.
You'll have to look it up.
See what it's all about now that I'm getting a little interview.
Only weeks after Cassius Clay wins Olympic gold, George Chuvalo knocks out Toronto rival James J. Parker for the Canadian heavyweight crown. It seems a sure step towards the greatest title of them all.
George Louis Chuvalo. His ambitions for himself as a boxer know no limit. Fight experts agree there's a bright ring future for the boy. Charles Templeton finds out what makes George Chuvalo fight.
Why really do you want to be champion, George?
Well, I guess every man wants to be the best in his own field, and especially a champion fighter. It seems like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I mean, money, cars, and everything seems to go with it,
This looks good to you.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Was I cocky? No. Was I self-confident? Yes, I was. Nice young man, I thought. I was kind of proud of myself. Had a bebop-a-lula haircut, I was almost kind of innocent in a certain kind of way.
Who was your idol? Who did you model yourself after?
Actually, I've always liked Joe Louis as far as that goes. Whenever he knocked a man down, it looked like a god going back to his corner. It just seemed like a perfect fighter.
That was my emergence as the number one guy in Canada, and I was the only guy around, I was ready for the big time, I thought, at the time.
Good evening. This is Jimmy Powers greeting you from Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Less than 2 years into his professional career, Chuvalo has earned himself a big fight on American television in the boxing mecca, New York City.
Beautiful left hook. Right on the button. That shook up McMurtry. He's hurt. And there's a minute.
I had him ready for the cleaners and a good left hook, and I watched him wobble. This way, that way. And I should have taken my father's advice, Papa's advice, just jump him, and I couldn't do it.
McMurtry had his left hand in George's face all night, every round. It was an 8-rounder, and George was embarrassed, and that actually did some damage to his career.
The gallant try by Chuvalo, who just isn't in the same class boxing-wise with his opponent.
That loss was devastating to me. You know, I was heartbroken. I just couldn't believe that I let myself down. You know, never mind other people. You know, my family, my management. I let a lot of people down, but mostly myself.
Chuvalo retreats to Toronto after the loss. From Madison Square Garden back to Maple Leaf Gardens. Maybe not yet good enough to be a world champion, but still more than good enough to play hero for the locals.
What effect will this have on the rather inactive heavyweight bracket in Canadian boxing?
Well, I think it'll give it a shot in the arm. George wins this one. I think it'll induce us to bring in big names from the United States, and also, of course, he has offers from Madison Square Garden to fight there, but I'm more interested in having the matches right here in Maple Leaf Gardens.
For the next year, Chuvalo is forced to step back and defend the turf he no longer really cares about. But professionally, and now personally, he has new reasons to stick it out. Life is fast catching up to the Canadian champion.
I had no money. I had a family. I wanted my house. I didn't have a house. I want all the things that all young married people want, you know.
Chuvalo had met Lynn Shepard in high school. They married when she was still a teenager.
I had a son at the time, Mitchell, and my wife was going to get pregnant quite shortly after that. I didn't realize that, but she was.
You're a young married man. How does your wife feel these days?
Well, I think she feels worse than I do about that. She's in the family way now. It's kind of rough on her, but I hope the fight goes long and it'll be a lot easier on her.
But now, even as the house fighter, a seemingly distracted Chuvalo isn't winning the fights he's supposed to. He's getting beaten on his home turf, even losing his Canadian championship. And worst of all, he loses a fight that would have given him a shot at the heavyweight title, right in Maple Leaf Gardens.
I lost that fight, and if I won the fight, I would have fought Floyd Patterson on December the 4th, 1961. But I didn't. So who did they bring in to fight Patterson? They brought in Tom McNeely, and he fought Patterson. Maple Leaf Gardens, December the 4th. You know, both guys from out of town, both guys Americans, you know.
Shut out of a heavyweight title fight in his own arena, Chuvalo finally realizes what others had long suspected.
I wasn't being trained adequately. I'm talking about sparring with guys and learning things myself, but also talking about them showing me things. My trainer, Tommy McVeigh, who was a very nice man, but I don't think he was capable, in my view, of being the trainer of a world-class fighter. And even though he trained a lot of guys, he couldn't train George Chuvalo, so I had to leave. I said to my wife, I said, Lenny, we're going to have to do something. I'm going to have to do something, so I'm going to go to Detroit. And I went to Detroit, and I brought her to Detroit. She had our son in Detroit, George Lee. But she didn't like Detroit. She didn't want to stay in Detroit. Too tough to raise a family where we're living. So I got to go back. She went back to our house. I stayed in an apartment in Detroit, and I was there off and on for about 2 years.
In Detroit, Chuvalo finds a new trainer, Teddy McWhorter, and starts again, managing himself, working his way back up from the bottom. And in the meantime, the spotlight he so badly craves has found a new place to shine.
I am the greatest. 15 times I've told the clown what round he's going down, and this chump ain't no different. He'll fall an 8 to prove that I'm great.
Only 2 years after the Olympics, the kid from Louisville is transformed.
This will be no contest. This will be a total annihilation.
Well, I'm the greatest, and I'm knocking out all bombs.
This was all media. This was all selling. And we tried to do it in a nice way, and some people didn't like it. Some people liked it. So our version was 50% were rooting against him, 50% liked him. So that's 100%.
It isn't just talk. Clay makes good on his boasts, lives up to the poetry. Managed skillfully by Angelo Dundee and backed by a syndicate of white businessmen called the Louisville Group, Clay starts to look like a great prospect and an even better story.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cassius Marcellus Clay. He's young, he's handsome, they know it. He's a poet, a prophet, and many people believe he'll be the next heavyweight champion of the world.
I was in Detroit, and on my 26th birthday, September the 12th, 1963, I got a call. Ernie Terrell pulled out of the fight against Mike DeJohn on national television, Louisville, Kentucky. He had $4,000 plus 25% of the gate. And I said, beautiful. We're on.
Round one of a 10-rounder between Mike DeJohn and George Chuvalo.
Unexpectedly, Chuvalo is back where he wants to be, in a big fight on American television, right in Cassius Clay's hometown.
And I remember seeing Ali for the first time. And I remember thinking, he dressed more like a preppy white guy than a black guy. You know, very straight pants and three-button suit. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy's got pretty small biceps. I thought for a heavyweight. So I made a little joke with him. I said, hey, Papa, you must have pretty big forearms because you got awfully small biceps. Remember, Papa had big forearms, right? Small biceps. So anyway, he says, Archie Moore talked that way. Alex Mitchell talked that way. I said, yeah. Anyway, so he said, no big deal. I said, I'll fight. We'll fight. I'm going to beat DeJohn. We'll fight. So DeJohn and I both signed a contract, as Ali did. Ali would fight the winner of my fight with DeJohn. I said, beautiful.
Chuvalo turned tiger again.
If Chuvalo wins this fight, it's an official date with Cassius Clay.
Every time I hit him, I hurt him. They stop the fight. I knock him down. They take points from me for the fight. I mean, it's like a joke.
There goes DeJohn down, and I don't know if he's going to make this. What?
I knock him down in the 6th round. I knock DeJohn down. They actually pick him up. I mean, people don't believe it when you tell them. They have to see it on TV. I knock him down the ropes. The guy picks him up and then starts giving him a mandatory 8 count. Picks him up and then starts counting.
Referee's helping him up now.
Working DeJohn's corner for the Louisville fight is Angelo Dundee.
Boy, that was a tough fight. And I almost had close to a heart attack when George used to get my guy in the corner.
John is in real trouble.
Whenever you fought George Chuvalo, you had to have your guy 100% ready. And you had to make sure the do's and don'ts didn't say mano a mano with the guy because he was so strong. He could break you in half. He got in the clinches.
Going to be ruled a deliberate foul, I'm sure, on the part of Chuvalo.
The vicious 12-round win is the biggest of Chuvalo's career, but it turns out to be a little too vicious for his own good. Suddenly, he doesn't look like such a soft-touch opponent for the title-bound Cassius Clay.
He announces from California that he's not going to fight George Chuvalo. He says, George Chuvalo fights rough and tough like a washerwoman. I ain't gonna fight him. He fights too much like a washerwoman. And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, washerwoman, and why he wouldn't fight me. I saw me hitting him, John with the left hook, whack, draping his 6'5" frame over the top rope. The top buckle went across his lower back. Then I started pummeling him, like so. And then I realized why Ali called me the washerwoman. It was like I was doing the scrub board, like an old washerwoman doing the scrub board. Bing, 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 bing.
Washerwoman was said with respect. We knew Chuvalo was a tough fight, physical fight. And the strength of my kid hadn't been pronounced then.
They thought it would be an easy fight, and after the John fight, they knew it would be a tough fight. And he didn't need a tough fight because he was going to fight Sonny Liston. It had already been signed, February 25th, 1964.
I can't beat me. I had a 180 amateur fight, 22 professional fights, and I'm good as a girl.
Cassius Clay doesn't even deserve to have that fight. There were other people on the rankings ahead of him. But boxing, as usual, was in terrible shape. Liston was a champion that nobody really wanted. And Liston was a thug. I mean, there's a certain kind of retrograde romanticism going on about Liston right now. But he was, a jerk and a bully with his jailhouse wit, his organized crime connections, and his general unpleasantness. Now that closed-circuit theater television was coming in, pay-per-view. It was very important that even if he destroyed somebody in a round, it was somebody that we were interested in.
One champ? How many baseball players?
9 baseball players.
But ain't but one champ.
That's all.
Ain't but one world heavyweight champ. He's the champion of all champions.
I tried to hassle Ali whenever I could. He'd call me to the washroom, so I got an outfit, a big old bonnet hat, an old flower print dress, all the wrinkles painted on me, and I had old granny glasses. I said, "You who, Cassius? Cassius, I have something for you." I pulled out a scrub board, and I pulled out Grandma's lye soap. I pulled out a couple of scrub brushes, a bunch of rags. I pulled out a contract. I said, "You who, Cassius? You forgot to honor this."
You're supposed to be a Southern gentleman, a man of your word.
What's all that supposed to be?
Look what you're doing. You don't even live up to your word. You're a blemish on the fair state of Kentucky.
Get that mess away from me, before I whip all of you.
I thought me coming in like the washroom, like the real washroom, would be cute. And it really went well in Detroit. It really went well in Miami. I embarrassed a lot of folks down there. But the only person I kind of embarrassed in Toronto was myself.
You can tell me an approximate date within a week or two.
I'm tired.
Just tell me an approximate. How about the January?
It was flatter than a pancake. The Toronto guys were all just shaking their heads. And like, why would you do such a goofy thing? But it seemed like they were stuck in the old days. And I thought I was kind of in keeping with kind of the new way of doing things in this sense.
Another jarring right hand that tackles. Another one. Sonny wobbles. Sonny wobbles. Cassius has him hurt.
6 weeks later, in February 1964, Cassius Clay stuns the boxing world.
Ladies and gentlemen, get up there, Joe.
And listen, quit in his corner. He didn't want to get knocked out. So he sat in the corner and took the chump's way out, to be honest with you.
You're supposed to die in the ring, at the least. And he quit. Liston quit. Of course, one of the reasons that he was able to quit so blithely was the fact that he had a return bout clause in his contract, illegal even then. And so he knew he would fight him again for a bigger payday.
Malcolm X, may I call you that?
Certainly.
Malcolm X, I want to talk with you briefly about your affiliation with Cassius. How long have you known him?
About 3 years.
And have you been advising him as far as his religious affiliations are concerned?
Well, no, I don't give advice to anyone. He's my brother and my friend.
We knew that Malcolm X had been in Miami Beach during the fight, and it was generally the conventional wisdom that Ali was, if not already, a member of the Nation of Islam, that he was certainly taking instruction.
But in those days, no one ever knew we were trying to be Muslim because we did not tell everybody. It was a new thing. It was hated, and we kept it more of a secret because of the white press and the people around us. We felt those days that we expose ourselves, maybe the hierarchy of the government would not give us a chance to become champions. So Muhammad had to be subtle, kind of quiet until he became champion, be as wise as a serpent, but as harmless as a dove.
The questions began, are you a card-carrying Muslim? Which evoked the communism of the 50s. Are you a card-carrying Muslim? And he blew up, I don't go around sleeping with white women. I don't, a stick-up convenience store. What is it? And then he said, which I always thought was the kind of athletic declaration of independence, I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free to be who I want. Coming from the heavyweight champion, that was profound.
Cassius is not my name no more.
Officially Muhammad Ali now.
Muhammad Ali, right. Muhammad Ali. That's my name.
Where are you going from here?
Well, from here I'm leaving. I'm going right over in a couple of days. My first stop will be Cairo, Egypt.
You know when you're going to fight again?
Well, as soon as I find somebody crazy enough to get in the ring with me.
With the spotlight now on the new champion, Chuvalo is just another fringe contender. He isn't well connected. He doesn't have cards to play. There's no quick path to a title shot. His career hangs in limbo.
I was depressed as hell. Man, I was depressed. I was almost crying. I was active as a fighter, but I wasn't making a whole lot of money as a fighter, I had to ration my food. I was cooking on a hot plate, wieners and beans. I was on my own. I was trying to manage myself. And it was just too hard. I didn't have the funds to stay alive, both in Toronto and take care of my family, which at that time was back in, in Toronto. I was in Detroit, and I had to take care of my apartment in Detroit, and then my more house payments in Toronto was too hard. I said, I got to get a manager.
He picks an odd place to find one, back in his old Toronto neighborhood.
I was known as the chicken man or the turkey man, and the average guy would say, "Hey, Irv, don't forget I want my smoked turkey," and we would process as many as 250,000 turkeys a year. And George Chuvalo's mother was employed at our little poultry processing plant. Katie was her name, and she was a fine, fine, wonderful woman. And Katie, of course, every day coming in, I'd be talking about George. I was watching every fight he had, knew every fight he had, was so interested in him. George, he had his problems going through to Detroit, and that's when his mother said, "Irv, please, can you help us?" And I said, "Yeah, but let's bring George in, and we'll sit down and see what we can work out."
He wasn't a boxing guy, you know. He didn't have any boxing experience, so to speak, in terms of management or anything. But I thought Irving would be easier to control than some New York fight guy. You know, I had a lot of calls from guys from New York, but they would try to be, you know what I mean? They would like try to, you fight for me, you just fight the right fight, boom, boom, boom. I want to have a say, and with Irving, I felt I would have a say. So I talked to him, and he was only more than happy to get involved, and so he did.
You're so gentle and sweet. You make me feel
It was hard enough for America to understand why the heavyweight champion of the world would change his name. Now it had to learn a whole new vocabulary. Black Muslims, the Nation of Islam, Herbert and Elijah Muhammad.
I have a religion, which is the religion of Islam, that most people don't understand and they don't seem to like. I'm not one of these who run around forcing my way in another man's restaurant and marrying out of my own race.
See, they had Ali. It was Herbert Muhammad, and because Rocky Graziano told me, he says, you know, this Herbert, I said, you know, he says, he told me, he says, I must have been in the can with him someplace and done him a favor. He says, because he told me we're going to take over the world and you're with us. He loved me. Graziano said, good, take it over. Let me know when you're on top and I can be the boss.
I'm your blood and your flesh. White people are not your brothers. They're not your blood and your flesh.
See, we got to face facts. Black people were slaves 310 years in America, and black people were bitter. We had a right to be bitter. Elijah Muhammad would feed the black man just what he wanted to hear. The white folks were devils, they were evil, they mistreated you, God gonna pay them back. Do something for yourself, don't beg white people for what you think Elijah Muhammad taught was good for black people if you accepted it.
They were different, I will tell you that, and it wasn't a function just of color. It was almost, they were a sect. They dressed well, they stood erect, and they never smiled. And I'm talking to Malcolm X, which wasn't a lot of fun, thank you, and the Fruit of Islam, the paramilitary police corps. And granted, the first thing you think is a prejudice. I had no prejudice. I just didn't know what the hell they stood for. You know, I guess I was a blue-eyed devil, but I don't have blue eyes, so I don't know what the hell they were talking about.
Black children should learn about their own culture, not about England, not about France, not about Rome. They should learn about Asia and Africa. They should learn about their own black selves and not be whitewashed. That's why they're so sick today, worrying you to death, marrying your daughter, worrying you in your neighborhood because you taught him Mary had a little lamb, his feet as white as snow. You taught him about Snow White, Santa Claus was white, Miss America was white, Miss Universe was white, Miss World is white, Tarzan, the king of the jungle in Africa, he's white, White Owl cigars, White Swan soap, King White soap, White Cloud tissue paper, White Rain hair rinse, White Tawny the flow wax, White Plus toothpaste, can't go to heaven till he's washing lamb blood, he's white as snow. They teach him in the church. When they get to heaven, he walk the milky white way. All the good guys and good cowboys ride the white horses, wear the white hats. The president live in a White House.
We had gone suddenly from a heavyweight champion who reaffirmed the very worst kind of racial stereotypes. 1964, as the civil rights movement was really bubbling up in America, to somebody even more disturbing who seemed to be playing right into the hands of white segregationists, the idea that the races could not get along.
But first, from little babies, we believe that they should be separated and sent just to their own school.
The moment that the Louisville group had been pushed aside, and pushed aside not by, something acceptable like the mafia or another group of, rich white guys, there was a tremendous fear that the black Muslims were going to run boxing, which was much scarier than the mafia within sports.
So I started off with the best of camps. I started off with the best of trainers. I started off with the best of sparring partners. Didn't care what it cost. He could always rely on me to come forth and give him $5,000 if he needed it, or $10,000 or $3,000 to live with. Never looking to see what I'm going to retrieve.
He was a savior, because I was always bemoaning the fact that I didn't have proper training, by virtue of not having enough sparring parts, by virtue of not having enough money with people who would spend enough money to have these guys come in. So at least Irving spent that kind of money.
All these things are not normally done unless you are a champion. I set it up prior to him ever being the champion because I knew he was a champion, or I felt in my heart he was the world's champion. He's got to be.
Irv Ungerman's first grand gesture as Chuvalo's manager is to bring in a high-profile frontman, former heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano.
I wrote a check for $5,000 for him to come in and help manage George Chuvalo. And I was the guy in the background. I'm the businessman. I wanted everybody to really recognize throughout the world that Rocky Marciano's protege was George Chuvalo.
The relationship between the old champ and his new partners lasts just one fight. It's a disaster.
I think a take was $600, and check bounced higher than the ceiling. It was kind of cute, and Irving couldn't believe he got stiffed for $600.
So that was my first indication of Rocky Marciano's setup, as well as the first purse with George Chuvalo. Rocky was not there. And I didn't know of any other better manager than my own self. And if I can't do it, then pity be. But I'm going to take a stab at it.
You have to remember, when I came back from Detroit, I was still a fringe top 10 fighter. It wasn't like I'd been forgotten about. And all it would take for me to get another real big fight was to beat one guy in the top 10 and I'd be knocking at the champion's door. And that's what happens. You only need one big fight. I'm just got to get back to the top 10 in a solid position, like 3 or 4 or 5, and you're knocking at the championship door. I remember telling Irving, I want one fight, and then I want Doug Jones. And he started arguing with me. And he says, you can't beat Doug Jones. I said, why? He says, you almost beat Cassius Clay. That's what he almost beat Cassius Clay. I remember those words ringing in my ears. I said, you kidding? I'll knock Doug Jones out. He's all, man, you can't beat him. Here's my manager arguing with me about a guy I was supposed to fight, telling me I can't beat the guy. I knocked out Jones, and I was number 4. And all of a sudden, Irving was a genius. He was a genius.
Break it. That's something wrong. Where you keep going? Stay there. Where you hit? Look at it. Kill. 5. Hey, but back up. Hit this one. Look at that. That's it. I'm tired.
Just 6 months after hooking up with Irving Ungerman, Chuvalo has earned another crack at the big time, a date at Madison Square Garden against former heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson.
Patterson was former champion of the world, and I knew if I beat Floyd Patterson, I'm there. I knew all I had to do was beat Patterson. I got a title shot. That's all I had to do. It's kind of like you're aiming for your little pot of gold. You got your shot, and you work towards that your whole boxing life.
how's the kids? Oh, everything's all right. Yeah. No, we had a charter bus. Pretty rough. So listen, you call my mother after my phone told her everything was okay.
We were heading for New York. We were at Grossinger's and we were at Kutcher's camp. And I went with George to bless his gloves, or his shorts rather, at the time to a ministry before the fight. This was so important. In those days, it's all the United States. The United States is the Mecca. And people respected it. Here was the Canadian.
Let's wish George the very best and give him a happy Touches send-off. All of us. Good luck.
I'd just like to say on behalf of my manager, trainer, and my sparring partners that we've really enjoyed ourselves immensely in the last 3 weeks. And the people have just been great, the guests, and the waiters, and everybody on the staff treated us beautifully. And I couldn't think of a better place to come back to and train for the Cassius Clay fight after beat Patterson. Thanks very
much. Chuvalo knows what's at stake in New York. So does his wife, Lynn, who insists on joining him for the big night. It's a chance for a fresh start, a revived career, and a different kind of life.
I've never been involved in a fight that received so much media attention. It was the hottest fight I was ever involved in. The hottest pre-fight build-up ever. It was just unbelievable. That was by far the most important fight of my life in so many ways. The weigh-in was a circus, but it was exciting. And there's nothing like New York, because that whole sense of New York is bigger than life in a lot of ways. And New York was the Mecca of boxing. Madison Square Garden was the Mecca of boxing. A New York accent is the accent of boxing, to me in those days. Hey, George, New York, it's different, it's different. And New York people are knowledgeable. New York people are excitable. New York people are enthusiastic, and they make you want to fight, A New York crowd is a lively crowd. It's alive. It's electric, It's electric.
It was completely sold out at Madison Square Gardens. The tickets were being scalped. They were sold for twice the value. The people, dignitaries that were there, going back to Tony Galento and Rocky Marciano and Jack Dempsey and Jack Sharkey, and then we had Sugar Ray Robinson and all these introductions to the ring. For a little guy like myself from the Junction, the excitement it's overwhelming, unbelievable. If you're a fight fan, that's what it's all about.
The fight in February of 1965 between Patterson and George Chuvalo was a war. George came to battle, and Floyd did not take a backward step. And for 12 rounds, these two men went at it like you haven't seen in a heavyweight fight in years.
There ain't no time, it ain't no crime, it ain't nobody to change my mind. I'm a man with the future. I believe in God and all of his creatures. Hey, got my mind, hey, got my soul, hey, got my body. I'm not moved.
Champ, a quick word on how it's going.
Lord Patterson really surprised me tonight. As he keeps fighting like he's fighting, he'll win this fight. He hit Chuvalo with a solid left and a solid right, and he's really in top-notch shape. And the main thing, he's keeping his distance. He's not standing there like he usually do. You notice he's really moving.
It was a very close, hard-fought fight. You know, the tide changed every once in a while, and even though he was an aggressive fighter, he still needed punching room. Me, I liked it in close. And whenever I would get him in close, I would work well with him. I could muscle him around, and I was doing that. And the referee would break his spar too quickly. I remember complaining to him a few guys. I said, "What are you doing? What are you breaking so quickly for?" Didn't say anything. Just keep fighting.
The bout is going pretty good, but this boy Chuvalo is determined, and he's never been down, and it's a tough fight.
George was there every second of every minute of every round, and they were going at it, and the fans were on their feet. I remember some fan running up, and I'm sitting in the press row beating on my back. He was so excited. Wow, wow.
That was the best fight, that, as far as I'm concerned, that Chuvalo ever fought. And in my book and on my scorecard, Chuvalo won the fight. But he was fighting an ex-champion in the ex-champion's home grounds, and you didn't expect to see him get the decision.
7-5 favor of Patterson. Patterson is the winner. By unanimous decision. Half the crowd likes it and the other half doesn't.
George, you cut on the eye. Was that from a punch? We bumped heads a few times. I don't really know what happened. If that's the case, I'm still one thing, my James. I figure if I hit the man to the body, because well, those body shots are, and you know, most guys don't like to hit the body. I know if I get him to the body, he'll start holding, and that's when I start ripping upstairs, because he'll be out grabbing me. Every time I start hitting him, and he'd be phoning from my arms, the referee would break us up.
Listen, George should have won that fight. And if he didn't win, it was close. You know what I mean? It should have been a draw at least, because he forced a fight.
I think a draw would have been a tremendous thing there, because one judge had 6-5 and won, the other had 7-5. So it was close enough to have gone as a draw as far as I was concerned. If ever I wanted something in my lifetime was to have won that fight. It was something that really set me back saying, he didn't lose that fight. He did. We should have won that fight. And how do you go on?
I think it's the best fight that a square guard ever seen.
I remember how beautiful my wife looked at the fight. And I remember how distraught she was after the fight, after the decision. I remember her coming here into the dressing room, and how I felt I had to comfort her, you know. I guess she was coming to comfort me, but in a way I felt I had to comfort her, you know.
Sure we are.
I'm going to get a rematch for a minute.
Oh, certainly. Sorry, buddy. We didn't lose a thing here.
George wins for losing the decision. He is that good that night. Losing a decision, which some people had him winning, because it was that close, catapulted him up in the ratings. Some people are defined by losses. That night, George Chuvalo was defined by a loss. And it was a definition of a better fighter than anyone had known in New York.
A moral victory is the last thing Chuvalo wants or needs. His only hope now is the Clay-Liston rematch.
Cassius Clay. Let's listen to the referee.
I was in Lewiston, Maine, the night before the fight. In actuality, it had already been arranged without the financial situation being taken into account. I was going to fight Liston if he won, and Floyd Patterson was going to fight Ali if he won.
In less than a minute, Chuvalo's dream once again evaporates.
We hit him with the first shot, you know. That was by design. I said, Muhammad, bring memories back. Bip, bip, and he hit him with a 1-2. This was all by design. This was not by accident.
I watched the fight from about 30 feet away. When I saw that punch that he supposedly dumped Liston with, I said, man, what a fake job. It was awful. Sonny Liston was one tough hombre. He could take a shot. He wasn't going to go down with a phantom punch. Ali called it a phantom punch, and that's what it was. A little tap over a jab, and he dropped like he was shot with a cannon. You know? It was a joke.
There's a man in the ring. It's George Chuvalo. Everybody clear the ring, please.
Of course, I wanted to listen to win, because if he wins, I fight him for the title. When a guy bows out that way, that's not the way I should lose a chance at the heavyweight championship of the world. You know, if you got knocked out fair and square, then I have no squawk. But I had a squawk that night.
I'm just like, I'm sick of the whole thing. I can't understand it. This is the type of fight that ruins the fight. They need fighters to come to fight, not just to lay down if they're just getting a light blow. I just can't stand the smell of this whole thing. If every fight was like this, it would ruin boxing.
I can't believe that's the relaxed man we're sitting here looking at, George Chuvalo, at the Clay-Liston fight. Do you still feel the same way, George?
Most definitely, 100%. It was just hard for me to see this fellow in such good shape going down such a light blow.
In the weeks that follow the fiasco in Lewiston, Chuvalo casts himself as just the man to clean up the heavyweight division.
What possible reason is there in a civilized society to keep boxing at all?
If fights keep coming on like this, then that's just going to, I think it'll probably be at the end of boxing if the people are seeing any more of this, but I don't think they will.
But I can't imagine anybody being interested in a heavyweight fight ever again after this.
Well, I think it definitely set boxing back a little ways, and I think it definitely needs a good fight to bring it right back up to its form.
Are you capable yourself of providing that good fight?
I think so. I really believe I'm the only fighter in the world today that can test Clay and bring boxing back.
You're beginning to take the words right out of his mouth.
No, that's what I believe.
Well, George, we certainly hope you get your wish and that you can meet Clay, and we'll all be looking for a fight that will cleanse the sport, as you so fervently have expressed. Thank you very much.
It's now open war on the controversial heavyweight champion. The press, the public, and now the boxing business itself have all turned on Muhammad Ali.
For fighting Sonny Liston, Muhammad Ali was stripped of his WBA portion of the heavyweight title, which somehow, some way, somewhere they found against some rule that they must have found on the floor. So they've now vacated the title, that portion of it that belonged to the WBA.
If we have more than one person walking around with the title, isn't that going to hurt boxing quite a bit?
Well, I don't know. It's the WBA's fault. They're the one who took the title. I mean, I'm fulfilling my obligation.
So that was strictly baloney, strictly politics. You can't help it. It exists. That's what boxing's all about. WBA. They took his title away. Now that was so ridiculous.
In the confusion, Chicago's Ernie Terrell claims the vacant WBA title. And even if he isn't the real champion or the best heavyweight in the world, he does have a belt.
Now we're trying to fight so that people would recognize this championship. And we were trying to fight a quality fighter. So I call Irving Ungerman myself. And I talked to him and I said, Irv, do you want Chuvalo to have a championship fight with me? He says, Ernie, how are we going to beat you in Chicago? I said, in Chicago, yeah. Fight someplace else. You mean you fight him here? I said, yeah, I'll fight him there.
10 years after he begins his professional career, George Chuvalo finally has his title shot. Even if everyone knows who the real champion is, and who's rumored to control Ernie Terrell.
I met the management on Ernie Terrell's side. I remember his name, Bernie Glickman, who wouldn't hesitate by saying to you at that time, you go my way or else, and everything was or else. And I was just a young guy, and I felt, or else what?
The mob is now a fading presence in heavyweight boxing. But with Ernie Terrell, some think it's their one last chance to grab the title.
I was very, very upset because prior to the fight itself, we were possibly being intimidated by the other camp as if to say, you better not win this fight.
He didn't tell me tonight after the fight that he had been threatened with his life if I won the fight. Threatened by Bernie Glickman.
Nothing I can call my own. 206 pounds, the heavyweight champion of the world. Baby, can't tell me how you gotta tell
I don't think I've ever been in a fight so lengthy where I got hit with so few punches. He threw a jab only far enough really to hit my hand out here. And I believe if I had my hand down, I don't think he would have extended his arm long enough or far enough to hit me. That's what I believe. All he wanted to do was last. All he wanted to do was go the limit. All he wanted to do was last 15 rounds when he knew, because of Bernie Glickman's influence, that he was going to win the fight.
Terrell is doing the holding.
He was always in the fight. He was trying and he was carrying the fight. Give him that. But I was steady scoring with my left jab, and he wasn't all that hard to hit.
Tell you that those jabs that Terrell has been scoring, whether it's solid, they hurt. It has not been a dull fight. It's been a good one.
That was a tremendous fight for the full distance. Ernie was moving back, he was sticking, and there was never any doubt in our mind that we were going to go after Ernie Terrell. He couldn't punch, he was just a fancy day, and as far as Chuvalo was concerned, and myself.
Chuvalo's cornered, dancing up and down, exhorting him to go in on Terrell.
All over! The bell rang, end of 15 rounds, I go back to my corner, and everybody's in my corner, seems like. Everybody's taking pictures and talking, and everybody's excited.
There's so many photographers in the ring.
They're all taking pictures of Chuvalo. There was a semicircle around him over there.
Jimmy Cannon, who was one of the New York writers, came over. He said, "Do you mean to say they've sold out this goddamn fight, that they're giving it to Chuvalo?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look at the setup. They're going to name him the winner." I said, "Sit down, Jimmy. The judges will take care of that."
But those people knew I won the fight. I'm sure they thought I won the fight. Otherwise, why would they go to my corner? Why would a guy want to take a picture of me? You know, why would they want to take a picture of the loser first? They want to take up the winner first, you know.
Terrell 69, Chuvalo 64. Judge Fred Norbert votes Terrell 73, George Chuvalo 65.
Terrell is
Terrell 72, Chuvalo 65. A unanimous decision, the winner is still heavyweight champion of the world, Ernie Terrell.
Bernie Glickman used his influence to win the fight. He scared the hell out of Sammy Lovespring, the referee. Sammy told me, right to my face, he said, "Man, they told me they were going to kill me if I didn't vote for Terrell." He told me, eyeball to eyeball. What can you say, you know? It goes down in the record book. George Chuvalo was 12, lost 15. But, you know, I know different. I know my heart, my soul, my psyche. I won that fight. I know I was champion of the world, at least for a little while.
I don't think he won. I don't think I was hurt in the fight. I got butted once in that fight. It wasn't that much of a dirty fight. A few times. But just outboxed him. I think that's what I did. That was the plan, and that's what we did.
We just didn't get it, and there were a lot of people that may have been intimidated. I don't know during that, but we sure felt that we were taken on that fight.
George Chuvalo's status as a legitimate heavyweight contender is fading fast. It's clear he has to start all over again. Little could he know that the escalation of the Vietnam War and the changing draft status of thousands of young Americans would do more than any fight to help bring him back.
Ali was renting a house in a black section of Miami. I was down there coincidentally to do a story, and there was a phone call. He went in and was in for a long time, came out, and he was furious. And that was when he had found out that he had just been reclassified.
Why would they be so anxious and determined and gunning for me, of all people? I just can't understand. The many people in Louisville they could have called, and many more athletes. Why me, the heavyweight champion of the world, and ranking me as 1A without testing me in no way? I just can't understand it, and I'm trying to figure it out. Why is it me?
Why me? It was really nothing about the war. It was nothing about, decency, justice, equality, or black men killing brown men for white men. It was, why me? I don't think he had ever thought about any of this stuff before. So how do you feel about going there? How do you feel about killing those people? How do you feel about killing those Viet Cong? And then he said, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. On that very day, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee was going through a very bitter televised debate over the war. And those people who were against the war were declared traitors because America was really so out of touch with its African American population. There was this fear that the heavyweight champion of the world would refuse to serve in the army, and then overnight there would be no more black soldiers.
If I felt going to war would help my people receive their freedom, justice, and equality, you wouldn't have to draft me, I'll throw them off.
Ali would pay a huge price for his stand. The first hints coming when his fight with Ernie Terrell to unify the heavyweight division is put on hold. For tax lawyer turned first-time promoter Bob Arum, it's a rough introduction to the boxing business.
Ali was asked to come to Chicago because the Illinois Boxing Commission said if he made an apology, they would reconsider the decision to throw out the fight.
What about your unpatriotic remarks that you made?
That will be straightened out with the government or whoever I have to face when it comes to that.
Are you apologizing for having made those statements to this commission, to the governor, to the people of Illinois, and to the people of the United States?
I did not make. I'll take that up with my lawyers. Will take that up with the proper people in authority over that.
People in the Boxing Commission thought that was horrible, threw us out, and Mayor Daley, who is the mayor of Chicago, said, get out. And in the next few days, when we were regrouping, the mayor of at least 200 cities in the United States, to get his name in the paper, would say, the city of Louisville will never do this fight. The city of Kalamazoo will never do this fight. Nobody asked these people, but everybody was getting on the bandwagon.
And the Nation of Islam was telling him that this was exactly what you can expect. This is exactly what the white man is going to do to the manhood of a black man who wants to be strong and clean and independent.
It isn't just another fight. The promotion is tied to a group of black investors led by NFL running back Jim Brown.
One of the concepts that we had was to be able to show these fights via closed circuit. And for the first time in history, black promoters could show the fights and have black Americans understand that only through economic development and self-determination will we ever be free.
I mean, they were taking this event very seriously as both a social and economic happening.
I was outraged. I was tormented. And I've been done this all this time. I'm in my 20s and I have never made no money. So this was my chance. And every kind of obstacle was thrown out there. And really, they didn't have that much to do with boxing. I mean, the people didn't have that much to do with boxing, I thought. But those were the people that was around Ali.
The people around Chuvalo, his wife, his young growing family, have simpler needs. Food on the table, a roof over their heads, and providing that wasn't going to get any easier.
It's difficult to come back after coming away from a $100,000 purse or whatever and go back down to a $10,000 or $20,000 showing. So you have to go out of town. We'll go to Vancouver, or we'll go to Newfoundland if need be, or go down in the States somewhere and pick up a win, pick up another win, and come back and say, hey, you're still in the running.
But the roadshow only works if you're winning. On January 25th, 1966, Chuvalo travels to London, England, where he loses to an unheralded fighter, Eduardo Corletti. His career is in a downward free fall.
Worship, how do you feel about your island site now?
Well, I feel very much satisfied. This site is the most wonderful site which could be chosen for an international and universal fair.
A promoter from Canada called me and said, why don't you come to Montreal? Because after all, they're French up in Montreal and they don't care about the Vietnam thing. And so I flew up to Montreal and we made a tentative arrangement to do the Ali Terrell fight in the Montreal Forum. And then members of the American Legion, the veterans organization in the United States, called the mayor of Montreal, Mayor Drapeau, and said that if you allow this fight to go ahead, we'll boycott the expo. And Drapeau obviously wasn't too much of a stand-up guy, threw us out of Montreal. We landed next in a suburb of Montreal called Verdun. And I remember Mayor Drapeau says you can't do it because they consider Verdun like Montreal, and if you do it, they'll boycott the expo. So we're out of luck. We don't know what to do.
They tried several cities after that and couldn't get them, so I was talking to Harold Ballard and said, look, why don't you put in an application for this fight? They can fight in Toronto. Nobody's going to stop them fighting here.
And so having no other option, we flew to Toronto, and there I met Harold Ballard for the first time. And he was a bluff, tough guy. And he says, Bob, I give you my word. The fight's going to be held here in Toronto. But not so fast. Of all things, the Ontario Parliament took it upon itself to hold a debate whether they would allow the fight in the province of Ontario.
Bob Arum came into Toronto at that time, and he said, is there any way that you could get Ali accepted in Toronto? And I thought, well, yeah, there's a possibility, because I knew a few Queen's Park officials, and I went about my way trying to put it together.
Ungerman first negotiates a guarantee from both camps that Chuvalo will fight the winner. It's a master stroke the local politicians can't resist.
With all the lobbying that Irving Ungerman did, and it was considerable, we only won by one vote. By one vote, they allowed the fight to happen.
Even after the fight was announced here, there was opposition to the fight, and one of the leaders was Connie Smythe, the man who had built Maple Leaf Gardens. Connie Smythe was a veteran of 2 wars, and he just couldn't understand somebody turning down induction into the Army.
Smythe resigns as director of Maple Leaf Gardens and never enters the building again.
Now, the American Legion, up against the wall, we've had a home for the fight, threatened to boycott all the closed-circuit locations in the United States. And Ernie Terrell and his people pull out of the fight because there's no money. The fighters then are getting paid on percentages.
It wasn't like I pulled out. They wouldn't live up to the contract. I was given a guarantee for $250,000, and I was given some training expenses. And I went to the camp and started training. And I think the check for the training expenses bounced.
We promised him that we would be in Toronto, and I'm a man of my word. And so we're going to go. And if he's not there, then we're going to forget about him and negotiate on a fight with Chuvalo. I think he deserves the title shot now.
In spite of everything, the fight had to go on. It was bigger than boxing now. To cancel it would be to surrender.
This particular situation was very important, just not because of the event itself, but what it would represent from the standpoint of other ventures, not only in sports, because it was like making history, economic history.
If we had folded our tents and gone away, I think we would have been dead ducks. I think it was very, very important for Ali and for all of us, and certainly for my credit rating, that a fight did take place.
When Terrell pulled out of the fight completely, it was already in the books. The winner had to fight Chuvalo, otherwise they couldn't come to Toronto. Well, when that opportunity came, and it only came about 21 days or 30 days, I don't remember exactly whether it was within a month, we took the fight, of course.
So here we go again. Chance to roll the dice again. So it happens, you know. You get a chance, and sometimes at the most unexpected times.
George Chuvalo had fought 27 times in Toronto. This is a man that is bankable in Toronto. That made sense to Ali and to Herbert Muhammad, who was handling his finances at the time. And it also gave writers a reason to take a trip, and not to Lewiston, Maine, but to Toronto, an exciting assignment, thank you.
I remember on the way to Canada, Muhammad would say, we're going to Canada, we're going to a different country. They give us the opportunity to fight and show the people what we can do. Canada says, in so many words, the hell with America. They won't recognize you guys, and let you fight, they'll come with us. We'll do it for you. And you did.
All I told Muhammad about Toronto's a nice place. We got to meet nice people over there. And I knew Toronto, and I knew the fight fan, the pulse of it. So I said, hey, where did you meet this kid? He's a good kid.
My friend Pat Thomas, who was a bookmaker from New York City, he wanted to see the fight. That was all right, but he was going to a place called the Town Tavern, and Ernestine Anderson was singing there, and he had a load of drugs for her and for him on him. So he said to me on the line at the Toronto airport, do you think they check you for drugs here? So I said, well, there's a line here and there's inspectors. I don't know what they're going to do. So he says, geez, I don't want to get rid of this stash. This is for me and Ernestine. So I said, I don't know what you do. I says, the first thing you do is go back 3 people for me. So when you get arrested, I don't get arrested too, and I blow this fight. I have to be here for a living. You're here to screw around.
Now that the obstacles were gone and the fight was officially on, the resentment towards Ali and talk of an apparent mismatch threatened to poison the entire event. Another potential embarrassment for a dying sport.
Boxing is one of the greatest sports as far as I'm concerned, but it certainly has slipped and fallen to a pretty low level. There's no question about it.
I think if we could bring back Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo and a few of them, we'd have better fights the way we used to.
I've come to Toronto to see how boxing might get back on its feet. And this particular contest is so very poor that I'm sure it must be honest.
Well, the state of boxing is pretty disgraceful, and much of the blame has to go on Cassius Clay. And I think part of my disillusionment is the fact that I am so disappointed in Cassius. And I insist on calling him Cassius no matter what he wants to call himself.
The venom, once the match was announced, had to do with the anger at Ali. It was about further devaluing him and the championship. It was not that, Chuvalo was such an unworthy opponent. He wasn't. Or that Toronto was the wrong place, to hold a fight. Not at all. It was about this mounting anger at Ali. And that if he did get to Canada, and if he did fight a heavyweight contender, then somehow he had won. He had slipped out of our grasp.
It was pretty somber stuff when he came up. It wasn't like, it wasn't the usual Ali stuff. It wasn't like, words and quips kind of fly up. It was quiet. It was somber, It was solemn, It was different. I remember thinking he had to be a pretty strong guy. I mean, he was facing the wrath of the U.S. government, facing possible imprisonment, facing possible exile from the fight game itself. And he's standing up to a lot of people, to a lot of powerful people.
The atmosphere is just not so to make me vicious. Like I usually feel, determined to knock a man out or talking or predicting. I notice the press seems to be a lot nicer than the writers in the States. They haven't attacked me in no way, and they haven't really wrote nothing bad, or they don't pick at me to try to get me to say something so they can twist it.
There was no antagonism or no visible antagonism to Ali as we had seen in United States cities. And that's when we realized the view of Ali in the United States was not universally shared around the world.
I think almost everywhere else that I had seen him, he had seemed besieged. Toronto really changed the mood, and he felt it.
I got to give credit to the public for that. They were nice to Muhammad because they've seen he was a nice kid. We had no problem.
The people here in Canada are nice. I've never really, honestly, I'm not saying it just because I'm here, of course, because I'm not the kind of person who say things that don't mean. I tell the truth and I'm known for it. But I've never been treated so nice in my life. I haven't had no people making wisecracks. Everybody's friendly. The children, the waitresses, the hotel managers, the policemen, everybody's as nice as they can be. And it's a lot different from where I come from.
I was caught up so much in the fight, too, I didn't have a chance to really dissect and take apart a lot of things. I said, hey, the cat's got his own troubles, you know what I mean? I got mine. I only got 17 days to get ready.
I hired Joe Louis, the same as I hired Rocky Marciano. There wasn't anything that I wouldn't have done for George to have won that title. I knew that this was all out. Let's do it now. If we're going to do anything, let's win this. Let's beat Muhammad Ali. Let's beat Cassius Clay.
Louis, sit down here. Is the thought in your mind at all that this fight could be a now or never situation?
More or less, because after all, I've been in the fight game now for 10 years. 10 years this year as a professional, so it's about time I got a crack at the title. This is, the big one for me, so it's more or less a now or never.
Let's go in combination. We got to keep hitting this guy.
George was taking the fight very seriously. I think he knew this is his time in the sun, and he wasn't going to let this slip away. So it was all work and pretty serious stuff.
At least the good thing is that I was still in fairly decent shape. The only thing is with a fight like this, I would like 2 or 3 months for the fight to get ready, but hey, when the opportunity knocks, you have to take it.
Go! Can't say go! Go!
But he's in good condition, and we don't want him to get overtrained. And his biggest fault going to be if he won't be able to move. He's a little too slow.
Did I talk to Joe Louis about fighting Ali? Even though I said, hell no, I didn't talk to Joe about that. It's just a publicity stunt. He was window dressing, just like Marciano was, They'll talk to you about how to fight this guy, fight that guy. I mean, Joe would have trouble with Ali himself. He had trouble with all them stick and move guys.
After 5 days in Toronto, the old playful Ali finally began to reemerge, albeit with some serious issues on his mind.
I want all my sports writers in the ring. How many sports writers are there? Call them.
Cam said he wants all the sports writers in the ring.
All the sports writers.
All the sports writers in the ring.
I give you all interviews you want. Now when it's time to help me, you turn your back on me.
You got your glasses on.
You turn your back on me, I give you all interviews you want. I never turn you down, and you won't even come in the ring and meet my fans. You must feel guilty.
So we have half of the world in here, and I'm the champ.
so I don't want no smart stuff now. Talking about I'm not no champion, and I done whooped everybody in the whole world, and you just gonna talk about I'm not gonna. Can anybody just take my title out of the ring? Would you ever settle for that? No, right? No. How many Americans in here?
Here I am.
All right. What other countries do we have in here? England? How many from England? Who?
Israel.
Israel? Yeah. Am I the champ in Israel? Yeah. I'm not the champ in Israel? Yeah. All right. Now, who's the champ of Canada, too? Who's the heavyweight champ of Canada? Chuvalo. So name one of you in here, you better be good.
All these writers here.
These are the good writers I just found out. These are the ones that are fighting for me in the States. Give them a hand. These are the only ones behind me.
That place was packed. We charged $10, which was a lot of money then. And you couldn't get in. It was absolutely awesome.
All of you who bought pictures, I'm going to put my name on it for you. Take time and autograph all your pictures. And because this will be worth about $10,000 in another 2 years.
You could get about 300 people in there. We were getting close to 4. We were splitting up close to $4,000 a day for about 10 days. So I put $2,000 in his hands, and I kept $2,000. We walked out of that gym that first day, and there's like 20 kids waiting for him in the motel. And they just, when they saw him, they're surrounding him, and he's signing autographs, and he's talking to them. And all of a sudden he said, come on, we're going to have a race. And they ran, and they came back, all right? The kid that came in first, he gave him $100. The kid that came in second, he gave $50. The kid that came in third, he gave $20. He did that till all $2,000 was gone.
As the fight approaches, the mood grows lighter. Some of the pressure on Ali lifts, and the Toronto fans aren't worrying about politics or mismatches. They're getting excited about a real heavyweight championship fight. But behind the scenes, one last person tries to spoil the party.
Somehow, the Ontario Athletic Commission and its commissioner, Merv McKenzie, felt that somehow they were taking a lot of flack for ever sanctioning the fight in Toronto. So what they said was, in order to show Mr. Muhammad Ali and the people in the press of the United States that we mean business, whatever that means, we're going to make sure that this fight isn't recognized for the heavyweight championship of the world. It's not sanctioned as a heavyweight championship fight of the world. This is really nothing more, nothing less than a heavyweight showdown. I couldn't believe my commission would do something so utterly stupid.
Showdown or not, both camps are soon focused on the task at hand.
If you stayed in front of George, you were in trouble because George was so strong. So I would give him an angle, left angle, right angle, pop, move over, slide out. And Muhammad was able to do these things.
They're sharpening it up, George.
You can't fight Muhammad Ali at long range. You got to fight him in close. I mean, with my physical body type, it'd be foolish for me to stay on the outside. He's not going to fight much in close. He can't fight in close. He's taller than me. I can get down underneath his head. So in close, I'm going to be the boss. In close, I got a chance to do most of my damage. In close is where I want to be.
George, you know, he wasn't no easy guy to beat. He was going to come out there and give all he got. I try to make Muhammad get away from different shots. If he don't watch out, I knock him down. If he stands there every day and let me knock him down, I would knock him down. George Chuvalo, he was a good puncher, man.
Despite the respect he receives from his opponent's camp, Chuvalo can do little to convince the public or the press that he truly belongs in the same ring with the heavyweight champion. By the morning of the fight, Vegas bookies are refusing to accept bets on either Muhammad Ali or George Chuvalo.
216 pounds. Heavy, George?
2:14 and a half. Muhammad Ali, 2:14 and 1/2.
I suppose there were people who read the New York attitude toward that fight and thought, oh, Jesus, we're all going to be humiliated. This never should have been done. You know, it was great that Ali was coming up here, but Chuvalo was not up to it. But what do you ask of an athlete? When the great moment comes, do you rise to the occasion or do you not? So George lost to some dummy none of us can remember. He went into the ring with Muhammad Ali, who was the greatest fighter of my generation. It was extraordinary.
Why should this guy be such an overwhelming favorite to knock me out in a couple of rounds? You know, I thought it was ludicrous. I had never been knocked out before. I always had a good chin. And, you know, I thought I was a pretty rough customer, you know. And I think that for people to think that he was just going to walk all over me was pretty unsound judgment.
No matter where you're watching, greetings from Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto.
Knowing what you knew about Ali and having seen what Ali had done, you knew that there wasn't much chance or much hope, but you had to have some glimmer of hope.
He wasn't an all-winning fighter. He might not have been in the class of Ali, but he had 27 knockouts. Chance.
I think there were people, again, that felt that, you know, he had a shot, but he had no shot.
The bell for round one. The champion wearing white trunks, scoring with a left and a right. Chuvalo in black trunks.
Every underdog seems to have a chance when the bell rings. But it took only seconds for George Chuvalo to realize that he was facing an opponent the likes of whom he'd never experienced before. Ali came directly at him, exactly as everyone expected.
It's one thing to expect it, it's another thing to see it and feel it and live it. I'd never been in there with a guy that quick. And it's kind of surprising, even though you know it's going to happen. It's going to be quick. But when you feel that speed, it's like, oh, my, you know. I was gung-ho to rip his guts out, rip out his kidneys. You know, he gave me the opportunity to do that once. He tried to hold me, and then he tensed his tongue. He didn't want me to hit him in the gut, try to just psych me out. But he didn't, because I know what he's trying to do. But he only did it once anyway. You know, people said to me, "Oh man, the cat let you hit him in the body." Yeah, one time. You know, one little short, brief time.
This was an old-style fight. I mean, Chuvalo was the honest workman. He'd come to fight. He wasn't scared. He wasn't cocky. He wasn't overconfident. And he was willing to take a lot of punishment for the opportunity to give some and maybe even win.
In my mind, I didn't take any hard shots. Not really. They weren't really hard punches. I've been hit a lot harder before and a lot harder since. But I guess I got hit with enough punches to make people say, holy mackerel, you know. But I never got hit really in the dangerous part much, in the vulnerable part, you know. This is the vulnerable part. Jawline around here, behind the ear. But I didn't get hit there. High on the head. Hit me high on the head. And I can take punches high on the head all night long.
George is ponderous. He's there. I mean, you're going to hit him. Nothing will happen. But Ali wouldn't get too close to him, except in the clinches where George did all his work to the midsection.
I could hear Angelo Dundee urging, stop fooling around, and Ali saying, I'm not fooling around, I'm not fooling around. And Dundee finally realizing that his man could get caught.
I was told a long time ago by my mentors, if you got a midget, make him shorter. If you got a tall guy, make him taller. The psychology of Muhammad was kill the head, the body dies. And I would tell my guy, hey, do it.
I could see the frustration on Ali's face where he would hit Chuvalo with his best shot, and George would take another step forward.
They have to see Ali retreating, running from Chuvalo, afraid that he might be able to connect one of those hooks and body shots. And the bells are ringing round after round after round, and Chuvalo's on his feet, and Muhammad Ali's backing off, and sure, he's connecting to Chuvalo. Sure, he's outboxing him, but the threat was there. Ali knew he was in a fight.
In my own mind, I was said to myself that I couldn't be hurt. You know what I mean? I felt, a crazy part of me felt indestructible. Of course, if somebody else said they were indestructible, I'd start laughing. But in my own mind, it was at a play to my own sense of ego and my own sense of who I was. To me, in my own mind, I was like special.
He delivered a lot of punishment to Ali. We never really understood before just how much punishment Ali could take.
Ali had to absorb what was going on, and he was man enough to absorb it. And this was Muhammad. Muhammad was a tough guy, much tougher than people realize.
You have a figure like Ali, who might be the greatest boxer ever. And then there's George, who an honest, tough fighter who never took a step backwards, never been knocked down, and George was always there.
The average person could never conceive what it's like to fight 15 rounds. That thrill is exclusive property for fighters who fight top 10, who fight champions of the world, who fight in the top 10. Man, I couldn't imagine what else can equal that.
This is it, the 15th round coming up.
By the 15th round, Chuvalo is swollen and bleeding. His arms hang from his shoulders like anchors. Ali is relentless.
He's stronger than he has for several rounds.
And yet, even now, Chuvalo steps forward, punching. His tenacity, his courage, his unwillingness to surrender defines him.
Remember what we had seen in recent years, the kind of questionable Ali fights. It was generally assumed that maybe Liston dumped those first two fights. So this was two large guys trying to knock the stuffing out of each other. This was what the boxing writers were comfortable with.
5 seconds. And it's all over.
It wasn't a farce. It wasn't Lewiston. It was a real championship fight. And George Chuvalo, journeyman, Canadian contender, had gone 15 rounds with the greatest fighter in the world. Maybe the greatest heavyweight who ever lived. He didn't take a backward step. He didn't quit. He gave his all. He didn't win, but neither did he lose.
introduce you as the former Canadian heavyweight champion, you know, former world title contender. But if I would have won the title, I'd be introduced as the former heavyweight champion of the world. Man, there's a hell of a difference. There's a hell of a difference. The former heavyweight champion of the world. You know, that's, you're another class. You know, you're one of the elite. You know, you're the top. You're the best. You make a lot more money.